Welcome to Therapist Spotlight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Anta's Therapist Spotlight, the podcast where we aim to showcase our wonderful members to the wider community. I'm your host, Joshua Brooks, and with us today is Sheridan Long, and Sheridan runs a clinic called Texas Natural Therapies out in Texas, Queensland, with her partner, Angela. Sheridan is the naturopath out there, and Angela is the traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this dynamic works, I think. Sheridan, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Little stressed with the situation on the border, but quite good.
Wonderful. So, first question, what got you into natural health and natural remedies and natural medicine?
Well, I was just in my 20s and I realized that I was fairly unhealthy in terms of my lifestyle as well as my health and the work, because I used to be a restaurant manager back then, doing split shifts, 16-hour days, and stressed to the eyeballs, of course, all the time. And I needed to change my life in terms of my own health and my own happiness. So I did a bit of a week away and discovered that I have a passion for herbs. I really love incorporating them in any way possible. So whether that be food or tea or actual extract and compounds and things like that. And so I decided that I'd get into herbal medicine, and I did change over partway through into naturopathy. Because whenever you're doing natural health in that regard, food is so important in terms of health as well as the herbs. So got to do the holistic aspect.
And so then what brought you guys to Texas? Why did you guys just choose to bring these wonderful therapies to the rural community, which are sort of in need of a lot of this stuff? They're quite lacking, I think, in some of these areas.
So I met Angie at Endeavour, and we fell in love there. And her dream was always to bring her medicine, so the acupuncture, back to her community where she grew up. And also I always wanted to bring the medicine that I was learning to a community that needed it. So our dreams really coincided quite beautifully. And we found a place to get a house and to have friends and family in terms of support us, because we do have family around here, and a building to rent in Texas that is suitable for having a multimodality clinic. And the dream kind of started to unroll from there. In my last year of uni, I got a call from Angie's dad, who found this place. And then it was just a matter of getting ourselves set up and be able to move out and open a clinic from there.
Yeah, and there is a perception out there about rural communities, which it is quite unfounded, but it is the perception that they are not necessarily naturally health inclined. But how have you found it out there? Have you found that your reception's been wonderful?
Well, we approached it because Angie's a local. We approached it from a very respectful point of view. So our reception has been quite positive. Obviously, being a gay couple and openly gay, we were never going to hide ourselves in that regard. Did have a little bit of a talk of the town to start off with, but everything really was positive in terms of people were excited to see the therapies come to town. We did open the clinic in the middle of the worst drought for the district. And even with that, we were still making enough money to pay all the bills straight off the bat. So we definitely have come into a supportive community. And I think the best advice I was given, which was by Angie, was just kind of be a nice person, get involved in the community, shop locally, get to know everyone in town, just be involved is the best way to approach these kinds of small communities, because if you're involved, they want to be involved with you. It goes both ways in that regard, which is quite beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I lived in Warwick for about 4 years, and I absolutely love the place. Like, it's so good when you've got the community and you can find like-minded people. They sort of really do back you, especially if they So how have you found it? Because, I mean, Queensland has been through, fires, floods, all sorts of, and now we've got this current situation on the border. How was that journey for you guys, navigating all those different ups and downs and drought and everything?
There's a lot of passion flower on the way. It would probably be the most accurate statement. So yeah, definitely. We opened the clinic in the middle of the worst drought for 100 years in the district. So not something that we would wish on anyone to do, but at the same time, it was definitely a time where the community needed us the most, where we could support and facilitate people's health as best we can in terms of our scope, of course, but stress management, assisting with that kind of access to more alternatives, as well as some things that people can do at home as well. So I started the foot bath and laugh for the community when we first opened, because I was like, we've got to do something that just promotes relaxation, community, and, having a nice cup of tea. So yeah, that. And then obviously we've tackled since then fires and mice plague and corona. So I can only say that I don't think anyone will experience the same events anytime soon. And it's just a matter of, we have taken everything in our stride like community. We've just tried to reflect the resilience that the community has as well. It's if we need help, we ask for it. If we can help, we do.
And I guess that must be so great with your clinic, because both like Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and naturopathy has such a great range of, like you said, stress management, disease health, physical health, all that kind of stuff can be covered by the two modalities wonderfully. And they really do work in sync, acupuncture and herbs. Have you found that through your clinic, working as both together?
Yes. Yeah. We we do refer to each other as needed. Obviously, there are some considerations that we do need to have. Obviously, working with rural people is a little different to obviously some of the social dynamics that you get in the city. So here out in the country, people really want to get to know you. And so there's certain aspects where we have to kind of be friendly to as many people as possible, which is part of the treatment as well. So that talk aspect. But then we also get the ones that are not able to really express their emotions, particularly in the male community. And so acupuncture is really fantastic. Angie can just sit them down and be like, look, I'm just going to ask you some questions. I'm going to take your pulses, and then I'm just going to put some needles in for you and let you sit for 20 minutes, let you lie down for 20 minutes. And so they don't really need to go into that aspect of talking directly about what's going on for them. So they have the options there really of, that whatever suits them, however deep they want to go, they can. And it's really come in handy because obviously suicide rates in the male community in rural Queensland and New South Wales is not that great, particularly in drought and stress periods. So it's definitely been a huge help for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Hey, like, again, one of the things that I love about natural medicine so much is there isn't this brain, body, emotion disconnect. It's all one, and it all comes to your health landscape. And as natural health practitioners, we can really navigate that. And like you said, if they don't necessarily want to open up about why, it's like, okay, cool. Well, this is a little bit of a wiry pulse. So I can see that you maybe have a bit of frustration. And so we'll just pick a few points that help with frustration, and you don't have to go into it. You don't have to divulge, but again, you still get the relief, which I think is one of the really good things. And the same thing, like you said, like passion flower, or you can give them these herbs that really help calm it without actually having to dive in and sink your teeth into it or go through the talk therapy or anything. So you can still give relief while respecting their privacy a little bit more, is what I really like.
Yeah.
And so get down to a little bit of brass tacks. In terms of a naturopath, what's your consultation process look like? So if I'm a new client and I want to come to you, what can I expect? How do you approach it? What sort of questions do you like to do? And how does the interview and the consultation go?
Okay. Well, I did start a different process as to how I have now. It has evolved over the last 3 years. And what I have now is the first consult is an hour and a half, and it is a lot of questions and trying to get a full scope of what's going on for a person, as I found that that is the most appropriate time for a lot of people out here. Some people come to me and they live on a farmstead. They don't really get much time with other people, particularly in this COVID aspect where they're afraid to come to town and things like that. Which then from there, I formulate a treatment plan and I meet with them in a week and we go through that treatment plan. I think one of the things that I pride myself on in terms of my practice is realistic application of medicine. So I talk about, with a lot of my patients, the quality and quantity aspect that comes in for them. And so what I mean by that is there's going to be some things that, you know, I would prefer you to do the healthiest option in that area, but your lifestyle, your stress levels, your you know, even finance as well as availability to products as well is going to come into play. And so at any point or on anything, I'm very open to being like, okay, that's not going to be the best case scenario in that area for you. That's your hard point. You don't want to give up coffee. It's normally a common one that I socially meet people every once a week for coffee, and I'm like, okay, that's a hard limit. We'll keep that and work around it. So realistic treatment protocols for my patients is something I pride myself on.
Yeah, wonderful. And I know for a fact that the beer would probably be another sticking point for a lot of blokes out there.
Yeah, so that is actually a really interesting area, as it is always a sticking point, particularly out here. Drinking beer isn't just the beer itself. It's also getting with your mates on a regular basis, getting off of the farm, which is where the stress is, but you live on the farm as well. So there's that aspect of still being in that location and still being quite stressed. So it's a matter of, okay, let's try and slow the pace down, incorporate some water in between each glass. If they're doing rounds, maybe everyone can get involved. And, you know, obviously working with the different layers, even just going to a lower strength beer or changing the drink altogether. Be it, I understand that there's some aspects of like, I'd really like you to reduce, but realistic treatments.
That's right. Yeah. And again, you got to meet your client where you're at, where their lifestyle is. And if you've got a culture that's been embedded since Australia almost began, it's can be a little bit tough.
Yeah.
And so
you've got to work with your patients and understand that it's not just beer, it's also the socializing, which is important for the mental health.
Definitely. And if you don't work with your patients, then you can give them the best treatment in the world and they're just not going to stick with it. So, you know, what's the point? You then don't get that outcome that you could if you don't work with people.
Yeah.
And so then in terms of treatment, what's your treatment plans look like? You said that you love herbs, you like your diet. So are you a big, well, I'll give you an eating plan, I'll give you a meal plan, or are you sort of more like, how do you stack your plate? How does that, and then in terms of herbs, do you do homeopathy as well? How does that treatment all look together with your diet, lifestyle, and the medications that you give us?
Yeah. So I really do tailor it to each person. A lot of the time I kind of gear, you know, are they time poor? So if they're time poor, obviously elaborate meal plans aren't going to be really their thing. So I normally try and keep it as simple as possible in terms of application. And we look at things like eating like the rainbow is a great example. So in terms of when you do put your fruit and veggies on your plate in terms of meals, I'd like to see the representation of the different colors on there, and then they can take that concept and apply it to any meal. Nice. As well as talking about the quality of, you know, options as well. So some of the fruit and veg, by the time we get it here in town, be it that our local grocery store, they do their absolute best, but COVID has definitely tried them because we do not get priorities over other grocery stores in some of the bigger centres, which is just the way it goes. Yeah. So we look at things like, you know, why is frozen a bad thing? If you live an hour out of town and that's all you can do, let's make sure that you're able to get the best nutrients out of those particular availabilities. Yeah, so it is
awesome.
a little challenging to kind of come around, as also we think about temperature as well. So if I'm giving them live cultures, is it actually going to be viable for them out at the farm stand as well? Does it sit in the car? Those kinds of things. The temperatures out here can get quite hot, particularly in a drought.
Yep.
So I'd have to say I really do vary my treatments to the individual.
Yeah, which is absolutely wonderful. And just speaking on that food aspect, I know that Woolies and stuff are quite big, but so are sometimes the farmers markets. Have you guys got a good local growing community and a good local farmers market out in Texas that you can help people sort of go towards, or is that becoming a little bit more trendy because of the shortages and that? Is that working at all?
Well, see, this is the thing. Being in drought, a lot of people lost all of their garden.
Oh, yeah.
If not a majority of it. Particularly where we live, we have 90 acres, just about 10 minutes out of town. And during that period, we were trying to have a garden, but it was more like a dust bowl. Yeah. And so in terms of that, it's a little difficult to know because a lot of that has shut down and particularly has not been rebooted with COVID. So there is a little bit of a culture of, I have ample spinach, do you want some spinach? Or I've got all of my lemons have come in. I think we got some person brought us like a bag of lemons the other day. We've gotten mandarins given to us, grapefruit, broccoli, spinach, bok choy, shallots, like whatever's in season. And if people have extras and they know that we like them, or anyone else, everyone kind of gets a bit of a list of like, okay, well, I've got excess, so I'll make sure I take some to this person, this person. Yeah. So it's not really a market, it's more of a community of growers who just give it to each other. I have excess here, take this, which is actually beautiful. Once again, coming into that community support.
Absolutely, that country hospitality. Hey, it's one of the things I love so much about it. And so then, in terms of like your herbal prescriptions or maybe medications like that or homeopathy, how have you found that? Have they taken to that out there, or is it a little bit harder to sell? Like, how does that work in what you've seen? Are they more nutraceutical because it's like a pill? Like, how has that sort of landscape worked in your practice?
Okay. So I only did my acutes in homeopathy, so I'm not a homeopath, unfortunately. I would love to do that and add that to my belt down the path. But in terms of dealing with taste buds and things like that out here, I generally really just upfront and honest. I love to mix herbs together, and I explain that it is easier for me to make a herbal blend, or a potion is generally what I coin them out here, and people have a bit of a giggle. It's always fun. In terms of if I compare that to a compound where we might have to do 2 or 3 different ones to get where we want to in terms of the herbs in there and the nutrients in there. So I normally go for my liquids, and I'm just very upfront, and I say it's not going to taste good. It's going to taste really bad, but small discomfort for long-term gain. And, you know, it's also keeping the cost low as well. So there is that aspect of I try and limit my products to no more than 3 at a time for people. If I can, for individuals, just 1. I've even, for one particular client, just done a medicinal tea for them because that was only within their budget. And I'm happy to work with that. I did get very positive results, actually. So I was very happy with that. And
that's wonderful. And I guess that would increase compliance so much, you know, like if you're sort of tailoring it, not giving them overwhelming information of take all this, if you just sort of, you know, just that small, slow steps leads to that much more sustainable outcome.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I try and promote as much independence with my clients as possible so that they're able to know when they need help, but also what they can do if they can't get to town in particular, just in terms of whatever's going on for them digestively, stress-wise, a number of other things as well.
And I love the fact that you called them a potion. Like it just tickles me so much because I think it's so wonderful.
Right?
Yeah, I know, it's gorgeous. And so then discussing your other half with the acupuncture side, how has she found it out there? Has she found that people are open to the acupuncture and the needles, or has it been a little bit of a hard sell? How has that sort of worked for her, have you found?
Actually, to be perfectly honest, I think the acupuncture-wise has lifted off. It was the first thing to really be encompassed very quickly.
Really? Wow.
Predominantly because I think there are actually more people out here who are in support of acupuncture than we ourselves first anticipated, but also what we were expecting in terms of latency. There's a lot of people who are like, they think needle, they think hypodermics, the pain and things like that. So we did do a little bit of education at the start of like, it's not what you've experienced in terms of that. And then obviously, you know, it's acupuncture, but she also offers within her consults the massage, the cupping, the moxibustion, the heat therapy. So it's not just needles. And really trying to get those concepts out there has helped in terms of having people to come to us. And sometimes their wait for the doctor here in town can be weeks. And I think at one stage it was a month or two. So in those instances, sometimes we are the first port of call for people of like, oh, I've just done this injury and I don't know, like it's sore, I need to get back on the farm, those kinds of things. And so we have pretty much an open door policy when it comes to those kinds of questions. We'll sit them down in the waiting room and Angie will have a quick assessment and be like, look, you know, this isn't in my scope. You need to go to a you know, physio, you need scans, so go to the hospital if you need to, and those kinds of things. So it's really worked in terms of kind of affirming the community that we are of a higher level of education and that we present ethical medicine and we really want patient outcomes. We don't mind if we aren't the practitioners for them. We just want to make sure that they are supported appropriately.
And so then what does Angie really like to sort of specialize in, or what's her sort of scope of practice for treatments? Does she like much more along the mental health stuff? Is she much more like the biomechanical sort of injuries? Is a bit more of a generalist for people out there looking at your clinic? What sort of stuff can it do for them if they're not too sure about acupuncture and Chinese medicine?
Yeah, so obviously off the bat, we've got a lot of musculoskeletal. So Angie got a lot of musculoskeletal, and not me personally. I just take the appointments for her. But I'd have to say her passion lies in the mental health aspect. She's since done extra CPD in trauma, in terms of face reading as well with the acupuncture, and she's also started her bachelor's of psychology.
Cool.
Because, you know, as you do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, and it's, again, the mental health stuff out in the rural communities is so important. Like there is such a gap in that. And again, a lot of, it still is quite a stoic sort of environment out there where, you know, you sort of suck it up and get on with it until you crack. And so I think any sort of support to help people with that, you know, because again, we've been through the ringer out in central Queensland. So yeah, anything that can help add to that landscape of getting people back to being mentally healthy, I think is just fantastic for out there.
Yeah, we do get some interesting cases and things like that out here as well, obviously with the isolation. So having as many support aspects and tools in our belt is really quite beneficial for our patients.
And so then for yourself and for helping people maybe have a little bit of an apothecary at home because they are so isolated, do you create balms, ointments, tinctures, that sorts of stuff so that they can have it on hand as sort of remedies where they'd need it if, you know, for example, if they cut themselves, they can't necessarily drive in, they may have some sort of an ointment that for cuts and scrapes. Do you create that yourself or do you source that in from other manufacturers? How does that sort of work in your landscape for people?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So moving here, there was actually already some community individuals who were making their own products.
Yeah, cool.
And so I elected to support them in any questions that they had around what they wanted to put in it in terms of the actions, the potential interactions as well. And fantastic. Then I was happy to pop it on the shelf, really, in terms of utilizing that aspect of community care. So it's really kind of interesting. I love to do support in terms of making individualized tea, so that's my specialty in that regard. But in terms of some of the other products, we've got made by a farmer. She does some lovely healing balms, as well as some other items as well in terms of cheese platters and things like that. But she loves to use beeswax in terms of that aspect. And then we've got Fox Hollow, and she makes some beautiful skin products pretty much. So bath salts, scrubs, and a lot of other things as well in that regard. And hers came about because she has fibro, and that's how she has made her products. And that was all here really before I started, and I've just supported them in their products.
That's wonderful. And that's that's again what I love about being out there in that community, isn't it? You can really start to support these local businesses that are doing wonderful things for them and get their name out there, and then really builds that strong, stable landscape, I find. So in terms of yourself, when you say individualized tea, what does that mean? How? Yeah, for anybody wondering, what's that entail for people? Yeah, sounds delicious.
Okay, so a lot of the time I really want to incorporate as much fluid into people's diets as possible. So I have found that infusions, just another form of water, particularly in winter, everyone's water intake really slows down. So I have spent the last probably 18 months now setting up my tea dispensary to have a really good range of selected herbs that I can use. And I'll have a look at someone's, what's going on for them in terms of, is it stress, sleep disruptions? Is it not enough energy? Is it even some of the health concerns as well, menopause, hot flushes, those kinds of things. And I will specialize a tea for them. It's basically the same thing as, to me, the same process as to have a look at what herbal extracts I want to use for them. But then I look at dried herbs and making them up a individualized tea. So a good example would be stress. I love to use hibiscus, that beautiful pink that comes in for that color therapy, but then also the vitamin C, particularly that tart flavor as well. So looking at the flavor profile, but then mixing it in if they've got sleep disruptions, a bit of lavender, maybe some skullcap, having fun with it.
Starting to speak my language now, I tell you.
Sorry?
Oh, you're starting to speak my language now, I tell you. I'll have to come out and get one.
Well, you're welcome for a cup of tea.
Yeah. And I guess that would be one of the really good things about that too, because everyone in the country knows, afternoon tea, right? Sit down with your cup of tea and have your biscuits. So I guess instead of just having bushels, they can have, something that's a little bit more tailored to them while they are having that and that socialized aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Or instead of that 3 o'clock, it's been a hard day, I'm stressed to the nines, I need to calm down, have beer, try and replace that as well, a cup of tea. So
yeah, that's it, right? Well, we're coming up on time now, but thank you so much for coming in. And I know, like you said, it's been incredibly busy, so we really appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk to us and share your wonderful self with us. So for anybody out there, where's your clinic located? Where can they contact you? And what's the best way to get in touch?
So we're a little old school out here. We're pretty much do all our appointments on paper, but you can contact us via our phone number, which is 0434613416. And also we've got a Facebook page as well for anyone which we get inquiries through. And that is just Texas Natural Therapies at facebook.com. And we are in the middle of Texas on High Street. So that's 78 High Street, Texas, Queensland, 4385. And always welcome for a cup of tea. If you're popping through, if you're traveling through as well, we get a lot of travelers, you're welcome for a cup of tea.
Oh, wonderful. I think next time I'm out that way, I'll take you up on that offer because it sounds delicious.
Good.
But yeah, we'd just like to thank you so much for coming on today, Angela. It's been absolutely wonderful. And as always, guys, the links will be in the description below. And if you're in any sort of that local area of Texas or, Stanthorpe, anything like that, please look up Angela and Sheridan and come on out and they'll be able to help you. But yeah, thank you so much. And for everybody else out there, have a great day and we'll catch you all next time. See ya.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Therapist Spotlight. If you would like to know more about ANTA, visit us at www.anta.com.au.